So it's a little unusual to preach somebody else's sermon, but today's the day. So I know you're glad you're here. So Barrett Owen, our senior pastor, was leading our tethered retreat last weekend when he got word that his grandfather had passed away. And he left on Monday to go up and be a counselor for the kids' camp at Montreat. And then from there, he went on to Nashville so that he could be with his family this weekend and participate in his grandfather's service. And so I know we were all glad and grateful that that could happen for him and that he can be where he needs to be. But before he left, he gave me the sermon that he had already written for today. I've always appreciated Barrett's capacity to work ahead, but this week, even more so. I was very, very appreciative for that. And it is Barrett's sermon. I changed very little, just enough to suit my own rhythm and voice. But I did tell the early service, if you find anything particularly inspiring, I'm sure I wrote that part in it. So, yeah. Which is completely not true. Barrett's voice and his wisdom are unmistakable, and you'll hear them in his words, and it is a good thing that he can be here with us. His presence can be felt even in his absence. So for the month of July, we are going to be looking in the Gospel of Matthew, particularly chapter 13. And this one chapter is just full of parables, and all of them focus on the kingdom of heaven. So each week, they will give us a new angle, a new perspective on what that kingdom looks like. The parables teach us about the kingdom of heaven. That's their primary function, but that's not the only thing that they do. They also give us a glimpse into God's good future. And when we put ourselves in the text, we start seeing God's kingdom come to life and subverting the kingdoms of the world. And this is the second function of a parable. They subvert the kingdoms of earth. Think about the parable of the prodigal son. The kingdom of heaven is like a father who welcomes back his wayward child. First century Palestine is a culture of honor and shame. It would be shameful for a son to wish his father dead, take a portion of his inheritance and spend it on sinful living. There's no honor in that. Yet the father subverts the status quo. He runs to his returning son. It would have been considered shameful and undignified for a man of his stature to run. But all he cares about is welcoming home his son. In God's kingdom, everyone is redeemable. In Rome's kingdom, everyone is not. In Rome's kingdom, if you bring shame to the family, you get crucified. In God's kingdom, you get redeemed. The story gives us a glimpse of the kingdom of heaven, but then also subverts the kingdoms of the world. This is what parables do. They realign things. They take how we see earthly kingdoms and they give us a lens for a new kingdom to come, which is what makes what Jesus teaches so important and our study of parables paramount. And when we study them, at some point we have to think through the context in which these parables are spoken. We have to put ourselves in the story. So here in Matthew 13, we're standing in a crowd by the Sea of Galilee, listening to Jesus teach. And Roman officials are there too. And here's why. Rome was the warlord of the day. They marched in decades before, overthrowing Greek influence and declaring Caesar as Lord. They put up outposts and armies to oversee their sprawling empire. They taxed Jews, making sure every coin, every statue, every public gathering had Caesar's name and face on it, reminding everyone, every day, who was in charge. Rome ruled with force. They killed with force. They spread their kingdom's influence with force. And everyone present in Matthew 13 knows this. Israel was an oppressed people. This is the climate in which Jesus sits down to preach. Verse 31. Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. One more thing about parables. They always start with something ordinary, but eventually something bizarre happens, and we have to locate what's bizarre. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed someone sowed in a field. There's the ordinary. Farmers sow seeds. This is a picture of a mustard bush. But then Scripture says in verse 32, it is the smallest of all seeds. But it's not. Good farmers would know that this is wrong. There are smaller seeds. You can see in the picture of mustard seed compared to other seeds. It's not the smallest. So what's going on here? That's what we're challenged to decide. One interpretation, maybe Jesus is wrong or just didn't know or have all the facts. Don't really like that one. Maybe Matthew recorded it incorrectly. Not really a fan of that one either. But maybe we've stumbled on what is bizarre. Maybe this begins the subversive nature of the parable. I think this is what is happening here. Here's a mustard seed, the smallest of all the seeds. Roman officials may not have caught that detail, but Jesus' neighbors who work the land and tend the fields, they would certainly catch it. Something besides mustard seeds is going on here. The parable continues. But when a mustard seed has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. Again, not exactly. Mustard seeds do not become the greatest in the field. You can see in this picture a field that the Catholic Church planted in honor of Pope John Paul II. Mustard bushes are big enough to hold nests, but they're not a typical landing spot for birds. Birds want to be up higher, and mustard bushes only grow about 6 feet tall. And this is where it gets interesting. Here's what Jews know about mustard seeds. They're terrible for farming. Mustard plants suffocate crops. They spread like wildfire, sucking up the nutrients of the land, and their branches grow seeds which then fall to the earth, and more mustard plants grow. The whole thing is generative. It feeds on itself. So they're a nuisance to stop. They snuff out a farmer's crop. Farmers hate mustard seeds because they know the damage they can do. And somehow, the kingdom of heaven is like this. Jesus recognizes the authority of the Roman kingdom. It's like a farmer and his field. But something new is spreading. Jesus sees Caesar's power and influence on earth, but something new is budding. It's small. You don't notice it at first, but it can grow and spread in an instant. And the kingdom of heaven is like this. It's a mustard seed in the middle of Rome's kingdom. Small, inconspicuous, and without anyone realizing it, the seed takes root. Love is planted. Christ has come. The kingdom of heaven is that seed. God's kingdom is at hand on earth, and it is suffocating out the Roman kingdom. It's kind of powerful, isn't it? Have you ever heard that parable in that way before? We said at the beginning, parables reorient us to let go of what we think a kingdom should be. And they give us a glimpse of what God's kingdom can be. God's kingdom doesn't come with rule or might. God's kingdom doesn't come with death and destruction. God's kingdom comes with love. And this love is powerful enough to snuff out hate, to snuff out fear. This love moves through the world like a mustard seed in a field, building on itself. And it eradicates the power that seeks to destroy. And it does it with love. Matthew 13's parables remind us that we need to be people who play a part in God's kingdom to come. We can't align ourselves with the kingdoms of the day. We're here to witness and to bless the coming of a new one. I heard the story recently of a young woman who grew up as a missionary kid in Romania and Sicily before she came to the United States as a college student. And when she was young, her sister had contracted malaria and almost died. And it was an experience that deeply shaped her. If you know much about malaria, you know it's spread by mosquitoes and it's treatable. But not every country has the resources to eradicate it. So to offset the spread of it, countries in the West have developed an insecticide-treated mosquito net that families can sleep under to protect them from getting bit. And the nets actually kill off the mosquitoes that carry the disease. An entire family can sleep under one tent and one net, and these nets are maybe $10 a piece. So when this woman got to college, she felt burdened by the death toll from malaria. It seemed so senseless to her, and she knew she was just one person, but she wanted to get involved. So she created a nonprofit, and her plan was to contact local missionaries around the world to be hubs for distributing these nets. They'd purchase nets at wholesale costs and find churches and groups willing to go on mission to take and distribute the nets in various locations. They started small, sending dozens of nets to 1 or 2 locations in Africa. But the mission kept growing, building on itself. By the time larger companies caught on and took over the distribution, this small nonprofit, started by a young college student, had sent hundreds of thousands of nets to the Caribbean and sub-Saharan Africa. It's an amazing story of one young lady burdened by a crisis that affected her personally, so she researched it and decided to do something about it. She started small, but her efforts mushroomed into something global and necessary, and she has saved lives. She stood in the face of something broken and believed in something better. She faced an old world with a conviction that a more perfect one was to come. Today's parable of the mustard seed is just like that. The kingdom of heaven is coming to overtake powers and principalities of the world. It's spreading like wildfire, not with rule and might, not with death and destruction, but with love. And we're a part of it. First Baptist Church is a part of God's new kingdom to come, on earth as it is in heaven. our missions and worship and faith formation all point to that coming kingdom. And there are mustard seeds right in front of us. Like one woman's desire to help a single refugee family that mushroomed into a new Korean church being formed. Like one boys' small group that just wanted to do the stuff that Jesus did, that mushroomed into a dinner ministry that has fed thousands of people over the last 20 years. Like a relentless commitment to love and nurture our children and students that has mushroomed into 5 epic camps serving hundreds of children in our community. And all of the other mustard seeds that we do not yet have eyes to see. You can be a part of bringing them to life right here. So get involved. Help us spread God's good future. Study these parables with us over the next few weeks and develop the eyes to see God's hand at work. That's what Jesus is calling the Jews to do at Galilee. And he's calling us to do it too.